Hey gang, you are at the Circle WC Ranch, Bill Wilson's ranch in Texas. I'm Massad Ayoob, and welcome to the Wilson Combat Channel, where we always ask you to subscribe. What is a good reason to subscribe? You might be one of the ones who got the question from our producer, Titus. What questions would you like to ask this, that, or the other of our Gun Guy contributors? Well, out of 400 answers, Titus culled a little basket of goodies here, the basket of questions. So we'll do these one at a time. Kung Fu Tweety 1, I'm going to keep a straight face, swear to God, asks, what is the minimum amount of rounds one should carry with your sidearm on a daily basis? Bear in mind, a gun without spare ammunition is a temporary gun. You can fire 4 shots per second with a double action only weapon like a typical revolver or a Beretta 92D, 5 shots per second with a short reset trigger semi-auto like a typical striker fired single action or a traditional double action pistol. And that can deplete your supply quick. Our friend and colleague Tom Gibbons says he wants the spare ammo not to hose down the area, but to buy you time in the fight. I'd recommend at least 1 reload. When I'm carrying a single stack auto pistol, I'll carry 2 spare magazines. They're slim, they're comfortable, they're easy to conceal. With a double stack like I'm wearing today, I want to carry at least 1 spare magazine. Your defensive firearm is safety rescue equipment. You want to make sure you can keep it up and running as long as necessary. Our next one from Philip Davis. As someone whose training predates rail-mounted lights, a refresher on using handheld lights in conjunction with your pistol would be nice. That's not something we can cover in a short answer, but I think we're probably going to dedicate a whole segment to it down the road. Basically, what you'd be looking for is something that would work with the common butt cap activator, or some of us still have the older models, the old Ever-Ready style on the mag lights and such, where you'd use your thumb. You want to be conversant with probably the most universal Mike Harry's technique, which would be this. For a search with a side switch mounted light, you might want the Chapman technique, where you make an OK sign like this. My technique, which was for reactive, would be coming up like this into an isosceles. And what you'll find there, if the gun is on the chest and the light's in the eyes, 7 yards and in, they're going to coordinate. And you've got a blind guy going like this for an instant, buying you time to get your shot in where it needs to go. From the Dude PDX, what do you say when you call 911 after having pointed a gun at an attacker who then ran away? Do be the one to call in. Now, the single biggest mistake armed citizens make is they do everything right, they draw the gun, the predator broke off, which is the single most common pattern of defensive gun usage, and then they go, phew, and don't call the cops. The bad guy calls in, and yes, bad guys call the cops. He hides his gun, and he said you pulled a gun on him for nothing. Now he's become the victim complainant, and you've become the suspect. When you call in, give the location and repeat it. That's the first thing. If the assailant comes back and forces you to draw the gun again, and you have to break off the call, you want the cavalry to know where they're supposed to ride to. Explain not that you drew the gun. Start off with whatever caused you to draw the gun. A man pulled a knife on me at the ATM, or whatever it was. Mention the gun, because if you don't, it's seen as a lie of omission. The guy with the knife pulled it on me at the ATM. I performed a defensive display of my firearm, which is the appropriate term, defensive display. He ran away. I fit this description. My name is such and such. I'll be here awaiting the officer's response. Felipe Moon, when should you draw your weapon? When you are in danger. In a situation in the home where the burglar alarm has gone off, you might want to have the gun in hand immediately. In public, I would not be drawing the gun unless the totality of the circumstances indicated to me more likely than not I'm in deadly danger, essentially a preponderance of evidence standard. But don't pull the trigger until you've met the next standard of standards of proof, until you're certain beyond a reasonable doubt there's nothing but pulling that trigger that's going to save your life or save the life of other innocent parties. Judson Morrison, do revolvers still have a role? You bet. The simplicity of the double-action revolver with the swing-out cylinder makes it a very good choice for what Mark Moritz called NDPs, non-dedicated personnel. The semi-automatic pistol compared to the revolver is kind of like running a Corvette Stingray instead of a front-wheel drive four-door sedan. It'll give you more performance like a Stingray will, but it's also less forgiving of a clumsy or overeager hand at the controls. The other place where we really still see a use for the wheel gun, the revolver, is as a backup gun. Its rounded shape will clear a pocket generally faster than the squarer back edge of a semi-auto pistol, and the same is true to some degree in an ankle holster. Many of the small autos are so finely fitted that if you carry it in an ankle holster, the dirt and dust that's being kicked up with every step you take coats the weapon. And I've seen cases coast to coast where somebody pulled a finely fitted pistol like the old Walther PPK from an ankle holster, got off one or two shots, and it jammed. A revolver is going to shoot even if it's got dust bunnies in it. You'll find also if you have to hand your backup gun to another person, another responsible person you can trust with a gun, you're not going to have time to explain to, let's say, a Glock shooter how to work the safety on your 1911. Or if you've got someone who spent 20 years carrying a double-action only gun on NYPD, to explain that your Wilson Beretta, by the way, after you fire the first shot, the trigger's going to stay back. Doesn't mean it's broken, means it's still working. Anybody you can trust with a gun, you can trust with a double-action only revolver. So yeah, they do have a place, in my opinion. From Magic Prepper, if you're in a state limited to 10-round magazines, is it better to carry standard capacity magazines and 45 ACP rather than limiting a 9mm to 10 rounds? That's an intensely subjective and personal decision. Whatever gun you shoot the best and are most comfortable with and works for you in constant EDC, everyday carry, is probably the gun to choose. I do find myself usually when I'm in a 10-round state carrying something like a single stack 1911 with 8 or 9 round magazines or 10 round 9mm magazines. If, however, you are habituated to, let's say, your Glock 19, if that's the gun that works the best for you, go ahead and grit your teeth and buy some 10-round magazines for it. It's pretty much your choice, but we did see back during the magazine ban, early 1990s to about 2004, a whole lot of compact 10-shot only guns come out and a whole lot of folks buying single stack 45s. From TK421 Caboose, legal and practical considerations on truck guns. Both legal and practical, the big concern is leaving a firearm in an unattended motor vehicle. A whole lot of bad guy guns get stolen out of private cars. If you're going to keep a long gun in the vehicle, let's say for an extreme social dysfunction emergency, make sure it's locked up in something hard that people aren't going to just break into the car with a rock and grab the gun from under the seat. It's handy to have more firepower in the vehicle than what you'd be comfortable carrying on your physical person, but you've got to remember that you're responsible for those guns and make sure if it is living in the vehicle that it's really secured there tight. And I'm talking a dedicated locking mechanism, not just locking the car door. We have from Cherie Leon, current take on prepping. The way things are going now, prep more. Dusty Dietrich, when exactly do you disengage the safety on a handgun during the drawing process? It's going to depend on the handgun and its design. If you're carrying a Beretta 92 FS with the decock lever that also functions as a manual safety, if you choose to carry it unsafe, which many do, if a bad guy momentarily gets hold of the gun, he's got to figure out which of those little buttons and levers to activate to turn on the gun. And that buys you several seconds to rectify the situation. But that same gun is perfectly safe in its G mode, where that lever is only a decocker. So I would be comfortable with that type of gun, popping the safety off the second my hand hit it in the holster. With a 1911 or some other single stack auto, no, because now we have a cocked off safe gun being hastily driven, and it greatly increases the chances of a personal injury severely to you if the finger prematurely finds the trigger under stress. On the 1911, I would leave the gun on safe with the thumb right there on the safety catch until I've decided I'm going to fire now. And as the finger goes into the trigger guard, the thumb at that point, and only at that point, would be deactivating the manual safety. From Pistolas Fritas, what's the proper and expected way to behave when showing a gun to someone? First, never let the muzzle cross them or anyone else. Second, with the muzzle in a safe direction, completely unload and lock it open. Third, check not just by sight, but by feel. Semi-auto pistol, little finger is going to probe the mag well to confirm the magazine is out. Little finger is going to probe the firing chamber to make certain it's empty. Still keeping it in the safe direction, hand it to the individual. With a double action revolver, open, clear, press the index finger of the dominant hand, the most sensitive of your 10 digits, in every single chamber. Be verified by sight and feel. Keep the muzzle off and hand the gun to the individual. From Scott Schiffelbein, decibel considerations when firing indoors without hearing protection during a defensive encounter. Depending on the firearm and the circumstances, how tight the situation is. The tighter your area is, the more the sound is going to reverberate and seem magnified. There may be some permanent hearing damage. People say, oh my God, I can't shoot this indoors, I'll suffer permanent hearing damage. The only time you're going to intentionally fire it indoors is when it's shoot or die. Ask yourself, how much are you going to hear in the grave? I'll take some hearing degradation. I'll take some tinnitus, which, like many shooters I have already, the constant ringing in the ears, over being in a box where I can't hear anything at all. From Jeff Jameson, what do you do for fun? This, like Bill Wilson and the rest of the gun guys, I am one lucky SOB who gets to do a job he loves. And I offer you Mark Twain's take on it. If you love your job, you never actually have to work a day in your life. Noah Cypher, what's your top reading recommendation? Oh my God. All you can find by competent people. In my work, I've got about 20 books out. Go to Amazon and check. I'm not going to give you an advertisement here. Probably Deadly Force is the one that you'll find most useful. But any of the work by Colonel Jeff Cooper, any of the work by Tom Gibbons, and any number of people now, Greg Ellifritz on the internet and in hard copy, Dave Spalding, the late Chuck Taylor, lots of great reading out there. Threat management is a multidimensional discipline. Every single dimension of it is a life study in and of itself. The more you read, the more you'll know. Turd burglar, should you have CCW insurance? While some of those organizations are insurance, I think of them in general as post-self-defense support groups. We have a whole segment on that that's either out or coming out. Keep an eye out for it on the Wilson Combat Channel. And we still have more. Live Prepared 24. Can things people say on social media really be used against them in court in a self-defense trial? You damn betcha. Anything you say on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or even email and on electronic gun forums can be found. You thought you deleted it, it wasn't. High-tech programs developed by the federal government for chasing down child pornographers, white-collar crime, can and will be applied to your stuff. It's increasingly common in almost any case for the judges to give great latitude in issuing search warrants for your various electronic devices and hard drives. We're going to find that thing where you said, kill them all and let God sort them out, or whatever other incriminatory thing there's going to be, and it absolutely will be used against you in court. When mommy told you that anything you put on the net or on Twitter or whatever is like a billboard on the side of the road, it's exactly that. It's a billboard on the information superhighway. And social media has become law enforcement and plaintiffs' counsel's best friend. Act accordingly and discreetly. Preston Monahan, I'd like to know your favorite 1911. It would definitely be a .45, and it would come down to one of two. A 1918 production Colt that my dad gave me for my 12th Christmas in the year 1960, and which I still have. Like many of my generation, I butchered the damn thing, putting on better sights, better this, better that, and killed its collector value, but it never lost the value to me of the symbol of my father's trust and respect. From L.J. Yarpe, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. How often do you clean your carry pistol? If I've shot it a lot, of course, I'm going to clean it as soon as I can. It is a really good idea every month to inspect your gun, even if you haven't fired it, and make sure it's lubricated. You're wearing it vertically. Most of the moving parts go in this direction, and there's such a thing as gravity. Most lubricant is liquid, and it can drain. Liquid can evaporate. An auto pistol in particular requires lubrication on those long bearing surfaces. Once a month, check it, make sure it's clean, make sure everyday dust and fiber and all that hasn't accumulated and crudded up. It's life-saving rescue equipment. Be kind of like a firefighter. When they're not using their equipment or training with it, they're cleaning and maintaining it. And that completes our basket of questions for today. Go ahead and subscribe. I bet somewhere down the road our producer Titus will give you another invitation to ask any of the various contributors whatever questions you might have. And he also keeps an eye on the commentary section. We take your comments seriously here, and feel free to not just make comments, but to read the comments of others. All of us learn from one another. Thanks for coming to the Wilson Combat Channel. We hope to see you back.